A kind deed that led to a horrifying revelation. Growing up, Nikki, an old family friend, often shared stories filled with life lessons. One of those stories involved an encounter with a hitchhiker who has stayed with her for years. Nikki, a kind-hearted woman, was in her mid-20s during the early 80s when this event took place. She had always been willing to help others, so when she saw a man hitchhiking on the side of the road during a long drive to the city, she did what came naturally to her. She pulled over and offered him a ride. The man was polite but somewhat shy as he climbed into her car, tossing his bag into the back seat. They exchanged small talk during the 2-hour drive, discussing everything from mutual friends to current events. Nikki felt at ease, believing that they were getting along well. At a pit stop about halfway through the journey, Nikki offered to buy him dinner. He appeared flustered but reluctantly accepted, sharing with her that he was struggling financially, which was why he was hitchhiking in the first place. After the meal, they continued on their way to the city. Once they arrived at the downtown area, the man thanked her profusely for both the ride and the meal. He asked for her phone number, stating that he'd like to stay in touch. Nikki, feeling good about the encounter, wrote down her number and drove off, thinking little of it. However, what Nikki didn't know was that the story was far from over. A week later, she received an unexpected phone call from the same man. The conversation started normally enough, but soon, he dropped a chilling revelation. He told Nikki that when he first got into the car, he had planned to rape and murder her once they reached the pit stop. He had intended to steal her car and dump her body in a ditch somewhere along the road. But after spending time with her, being treated so kindly, and having dinner with her, he found himself unable to go through with his dark intentions. The man said that he couldn't live with himself if he harmed such a nice woman. His final words were a warning. "Please, Nikki, never pick up another hitchhiker." Then, he hung up the phone. When Nikki attempted to call him back, she found that the number had been disconnected, and she could only reach a payphone. The realization that she had narrowly escaped a horrific fate weighed heavily on her. Since then, she has never picked up a hitchhiker again, heeding the chilling advice of the man she once helped. A personal encounter, trusting a stranger at night. While Nikki's story haunted me growing up, I learned my own hard lesson years later, after I turned 16. I had just gotten my first car, a 1999 Toyota Camry, and was excited to experience the newfound freedom that came with it. One warm Saturday night in 2005, my friend Alex invited me to a big party at one of his friends' houses. Knowing I'd likely be in no condition to drive home later, I wasn't too concerned about driving my car back, but I was excited for the night ahead. On my way to the party, I was driving down a quiet road in New Jersey, Route 542, which was often deserted at night. It was a long stretch of road, flanked by thick woods on either side, with a few houses scattered along the way. At around 1 a.m., as I was heading home after the party, the eerily empty road stretched out before me, and there was no sign of another car in sight. I turned on my Jeep's off-road lights to improve my visibility since the road was completely unlit, and that's when I saw him. Far ahead, I could make out the figure of a man standing by the side of the road, and as I approached, I saw him raise his thumb, a classic hitchhiker's signal. My heart started racing. It was a moment of uncertainty. Should I stop? Should I keep driving? As I slowed down to get a better look, I noticed that the man looked to be in his late 20s, dressed in a light gray hoodie and blue denim jeans. After a brief hesitation, I decided to stop. Rolling down the window, I asked, "Where are you heading, friend?" He replied in a deep, quiet tone, "Just up the road." Against my better judgment, I told him to hop in. He opened the door to my Jeep and climbed inside slowly. However, when he tried to close the door, it wouldn't shut properly. I politely asked him to try again, explaining that the doors on my Jeep were a bit tricky. He paused, his body language unnerving, before slamming the door shut with more force than necessary. As we began driving, the silence between us felt oppressive. The awkward tension hung in the air and I could feel his gaze on me, but I didn't dare look back. About a mile into the drive, he spoke, his voice cold and detached. "I've been wondering for the longest time if it's just worth it to end it all," he said, his tone unsettling. I looked over at him, confused and unsure how to respond. He pulled a knife from his pocket, a big red blade that seemed to glint menacingly in the dim light. My stomach dropped. He explained that he had been carrying the knife for weeks, unsure of when or how to use it. Terror gripped me. I knew I had to act quickly to avoid a dangerous situation. "Put the knife away," I said, my voice trembling. He ignored me and calmly instructed, "Pull over next to that sign." As I drove slowly, I reached a speed limit sign and stopped. The man in the passenger seat began slitting his forearm with a knife, revealing deep scars as he let out a disturbing moan. Fear gripped me and I demanded, "You need to get out of my car now." Without a word, he raised the knife, threatening me. "Get out. I want to show you something behind the sign," he ordered. Realizing my life was in danger, I pretended to comply, opening the door and backing away slowly. As he moved behind the car, I jumped back in, slammed it into drive, and floored it down the road. I didn't look back until I reached the safety of home. That terrifying experience left me shaken for weeks, teaching me a crucial lesson. If you encounter a hitchhiker on a deserted road, just keep driving, no matter what. A night of unexpected danger, abandoned at a party and hitchhiking to safety. The story begins with a night in the countryside of Virginia, where a group of friends attended a party hosted by a kid they weren't particularly close with. The party was held outside, far from the prying eyes of neighbors, which made it a major event in a sparsely populated area. Things took a turn when the designated driver, Brianna, had to leave for a family emergency, leaving the group stranded without a ride back home. After a few hours of drinking, the protagonist finds themselves alone at the party, unable to locate their friend Alex, who had apparently left without them. With no other option, they begin the long walk back home, hoping for a ride. After a short while, a man in a '98 Ford Explorer offers them a lift. Initially grateful, the protagonist quickly falls into a fog of exhaustion and alcohol-induced stupor, eventually passing out in the car. Upon waking, they realize they are no longer on the familiar road to their house, and the man driving seems evasive, answering direct questions with irrelevant ones. Panic sets in as they realize they may be in danger. The protagonist attempts to throw up on the man to create a distraction, and in the chaos, runs into the woods to escape. After hiding successfully and waiting for the man to leave, the protagonist sees another car approach and, with desperation, flags it down for help. The driver offers to take them home, but the lack of critical information, like the man's license plate number, prevents a proper report. The incident ends with the protagonist safely back home, but the memory lingers, always reminding them of the night they narrowly escaped danger.